Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot and very happy to be here today. So we are here with Miles Johnston, the wonderful researcher, interviewer, investigator into the paranormal and abductions, really specializing in abductions, I would say, in ET contact, but other things as well. Also a recording engineer. I think you call it that, right?
Well, I'm broadcast telly, darling.
A broadcast what?
TV, darling, television.
Television, broadcast.
Yeah. I've wrecked my back hauling.
You're an engineer. You started as an engineer, correct?
Yeah. Well, technically that's what I do as a job, because all this other shenanigans we don't talk about at all when you talk to official circles.
Right. So anyway, we're not going to go there, but let's introduce you very briefly, okay? And you have experience in the broadcast sector for many, many years, and you came from Radio Caroline all the way back on.
Well, I made my own pirate stations in Ireland. Radio Caroline was made by an earlier troublemaker called Ronan O'Reilly in 1963, and I was only 5 years old there, or 6 years old.
Oh, I thought you did that.
Well, I did it as well.
Okay. All right. So how should we start? Where do you want to go? Because this
Carrie, I'm going to just start right now. I'm just going to put it to you right now that I've heard that a Maria Cassidy and a Kerry Wheatley or somebody were running around nightclubs in London for 2 weeks under the pretext they're in a place called Egypt.
Oh.
Because all I ever saw were pictures of hotels you could have got from any brochure. And I still have to see any actual physical evidence that these two mad women were messing around in the clubs in Cairo.
Oh, don't be ridiculous.
Somebody else called, was Kerry Cassidy or somebody? And Maria Wheatley or something?
Yes, yes.
Press headlines here got it mixed up maybe. Because as you well know, Kerry, the mainstream media gets everything just right.
Absolutely. We have ample evidence of that today. And by the way, did you know that yesterday we met with Andrew Bridgen in an undisclosed location, other than I can say a London club?
I'm going to say right now you need to go after the former Prime Minister.
The former Prime Minister,
yes,
which
Liz, what's her name? Truss.
I was wondering if she was still alive, to be honest.
No, she has written, and this is very serious. Okay, so I'm not going about. There's a very important free newspaper as freedom. It's called The Light, and they print. And Liz Truss, the former Prime Minister, has printed an extremely important article in that free newspaper. It's given out at all the freedom marches and things, and it's a physical newspaper. It's a piece of paper. You know, it's actually real.
All right.
And I think that for her to declare that she was taken out by dark forces of the financial institutions, a very important article, and that's in the latest edition of the Light newspaper. I could get a copy of it, but not that copy. If you want to hang on for a sec, I can hold it
okay,
up.
Well, it sounds interesting. I'm going to put a photograph while you look for that of me in Egypt, so you can't say I was lying. So this is for those who haven't already seen this. I actually wrote a very important article about it as well. So hopefully, you know, the word is getting out there, but the bottom line is that I'm sort of reinterpreting what's really going on in Egyptology and what the lies and the propaganda, even from back in those days back in Egypt. So so I think that's worth noting. But
Kerry, I have to point out that those photographs are fake because you're using the same sunglasses and the same pose in each one. Clearly those are photoshopped by the CIA. Okay,
except they're not the same pose, but whatever.
Listen, for the point of view of inaccurate slagging off and being annoying, they suit my purposes. Right.
Okay.
This is a very important free newspaper. It's freedom of thought. It's the Light newspaper. It's published in the UK, and it's like the size of the Daily Mail, and there's all sorts of really nice articles in it. So the point is that this, you know, there's lots of things about the vaccine and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
This is about UK doctors. This is actually issue 29. It's issued
It
monthly.
looks like it's sincerely out of date. Aren't
Well,
they
no, this is out of date.
realized
This is
that
an
the
old,
whole thing
yeah.
ended a long time ago? That maybe,
No, but this is an old newspaper.
okay.
Okay. But the point is they publish it and you won't get this on any of the other mainstream newspapers. Consequently, when the former Prime Minister publishes an article in this newspaper, the current edition,
Okay.
that's a big deal. And you interviewed that MP in what's his name? You just mentioned that person's name. And
Andrew Bridgen.
yeah, I think. And did you note on Parliament, whenever he stood up, the entire chamber emptied except for civil servants?
Yeah, it's incredible.
But more important about that, and it's been pointed out by other commentators, a member of the Conservative Party walked across the House and told two members of the Liberal Party to get out.
Oh, wow. Check
That's
this
it.
out.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Unfortunately,
Can you
the
see that
AI
headline?
deletes
Wait.
it.
Can you see that headline?
Yeah.
Why is it
Yeah.
reversed?
Yeah. It does that because it's not human.
Are we all being brainwashed?
Yes.
That's the headline. I'm sorry, you can't read it. I don't know.
Unfortunately, the AI determines it is not a human thing. Now, there's another, since we're showing newspapers. Where is it now? Oh,
Okay, sorry for this. I know I'm supposed to be talking here, so I will try to do some fill. Okay, so I met with Andrew Bridgen, and actually I could throw the video up here while we're waiting for Miles if we get time to do that. I don't know if I can manage that right this second, but I'll try.
I'm not going to get it in time.
All right, fine.
And they might actually not like this thing. The important thing about it, a very, very high level professional magazine published The Future of Broadcasting. It's a technical magazine. It's talking about all the equipment and trends in broadcasting. Consequently, it's very thick. It's very heavy to make itself very important. The front of their headline for this month's or this bi-monthly thing was the term hive mind.
Oh, you're kidding.
And then the whole background is a honeycomb of people stuck in little cells.
Oh, wow.
Like in a bee.
Insane.
And you cannot get any more direct and more sinister than that from a broadcast trends magazine than that.
Wow, that's insane.
So this is really.
Okay, but what was that related to? I don't understand.
That was related to the article, the headline that you saw, that you printed. Anyway, you know about that magazine, this one, the Delight and all that. So okay. I'm suggesting that you try to interview Liz Truss.
Well, okay. Well, I'll try. Because you think what about her? Why does she have
written a very important article illustrating how she was taken out of office and the tremendously serious dark forces in the banking sectors which destroyed her prime ministership. It was a coup d'etat. We have had a coup d'etat in this country.
Oh, all right. That's kind of interesting. Well, I think there's possibility that Andrew Bridgen could be prime minister in the future.
Well, I think he's going to have to maybe start a new political party. He's a man who stood up in Parliament and stuck by his principles and did something for the interests of the people of this country and his constituents. Now, all of the rest of them walked out.
Yes, I know.
And
I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you a quick clip. Is that all right? Do you mind watching? It's very quick. I can't remember. I don't think I sent it to you yet. So you may not have seen it, but here it is. Okay, I'm running it. This is our meeting yesterday with Andrew, and we decided to do a very quick little video. Hi, I'm Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot. I'm here in this amazing club. Can I say the name of the club or better not? Better not. Okay, I'm here with this hero, this English hero, who's come out against the vax and in Parliament, Andrew Bridgen. I've interviewed him in the past, but we're here in person. And we've had a lovely chat, and it's amazing to be here with you. Do you want to say anything to the American people?
Well, keep the faith. People are waking up around the world. The next 12 months, 18 months is going to be absolutely crucial for all our futures. And keep the faith.
Thank you. Okay,
Harry,
there you have
really
it.
good show. Damn fine. That's a man with courage, and that's brilliant. And I think that because he's done that, the former prime minister might be game. That's my hunch. If she's allowing herself to be published in the Light newspaper, it's clear where the signs are.
Oh, really? Okay, I'll take your word for it. I don't know. But you're the one in Britain. Okay, we're just stopping over here. Actually, I'm flying back to the US tomorrow. So can you
think they'll let you in?
What?
Will they let you back in?
Yes, I think so. The question always is, will they let me in Britain? That's more to the point.
Well, let anybody in here. All you got to do is just have a mobile phone and a boat.
Oh, well, it helps
information,
if
look at
you're
hotels.
either Romanian or Ukrainian. That helps. Okay.
Well, there are secret armies going around, and there are people going around London lifting up what we call manhole covers and putting devices in under these manhole covers. And there's a friend of mine called Jane Shattuck, a damn fine woman who's defying. I think you may have met her. She found some people. These are the kind of workmen that go around the streets with yellow things on and start digging holes in the road. And you
Right.
meant to have a permit, and you meant to have all the relevant paperwork. And she found that the people outside her home didn't. And
So what is that? What would
they're
you surmise that you think that's an intelligence operation?
There is a secret army going around planting things in the streets.
Well, what kind of thing?
They're young. We don't know, but they've been seen all over sectors of London.
Wow.
And my friend Jane, she faced these people down. They don't speak English. A lot of them don't speak English. And they didn't have the right paperwork, and they just packed up and went, and they didn't return. So they're putting something in to the infrastructure of, well, maybe there's some kind of devices which will contaminate the water, or we have no idea. But obviously, why lifting manhole covers are heavy, the big one, and that goes into the sewage system. So maybe there's people running around in there putting things into our underground water system to do some kind of nefarious activity.
Okay.
They are preparing for some kind of takeover in this country.
The audio is too low, according to
My audio?
No, mine. Mine's really loud over here.
No,
Not sure.
Miles' audio.
Oh, Miles, you're not. You sound fine to me, but apparently you're not loud enough for the audience. Can you be a
I've
little?
got it. Is that better? Hello? Let's get some audio here.
You sounds fine.
I've muted audio settings,
No, it's not.
microphone.
Through.
It's coming back through.
I don't know how you.
Is that okay? Is that better?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sending it as loud as I can. If I talk closer, so is it?
You're fine. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay. So the manhole covers is covered. And we don't know exactly what that is, but I guess it'll turn
The
out.
manhole covers are the big heavy things which trucks and traffic drive over, which gives you
I
access.
know what they are. Okay, I do know.
Well, I don't know what you call them in the States.
I think we call them that.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the few things that we call by the same name. Doesn't happen very often. So
Well,
okay.
I put an end to that immediately, because that would make stop that right now.
Exactly. We might be communicating in the same language, which would probably be insane. One thing, Andrew Bridgen in our conversation said is that he thinks, and we agreed on this, that the United States and Britain are working very closely together, regardless of what some people think.
Well, I think we're all dealing with this is a problem in that all the countries who are associated with the empires of the Middle Ages are operating in sync.
Okay.
So if you think of anything that's British, that's all the former colonies. Let's put it this way. Okay, America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. New Zealand is a nightmare. I think the ones that managed to leave in Africa are okay. But the most insidious and most core of, that's not very good English, of what's going on are of the so-called British Empire. You then have the Dutch Empire, which includes Shell and all that infrastructure. You have the the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and for the United States to directly attack Germany by blowing up that pipeline, it is, you know, there's been no history of German troublemaking in the last 100 years. There's been no activity from the Germans about not really liking what's going on. And likewise, Russia doesn't have any precedent of, you know, if you invade it, it's not a good idea. I mean,
Okay,
Napoleon never did.
I have something for you that I want to ask you since you brought up Germany, because I've been asking around about this. And let me see if I still have it on my desktop or not. Oh, that's not convenient. But at any rate, there's a word going around that Germany is going to be switching off their nuclear power plants and they're going on to hydrogen. Have you heard that?
Hydrogen is the big deal, because I interviewed a guy who was the technical director, which is the technical engineering person in the board of directors. He isn't now, but this particular company, which I won't name, but the product I think is Triton X. The key to storing hydrogen gas has been, the problem is, A, it's the smallest element on the periodic table, which means it's smaller than anything else. And it leaks in a gas form. It's very, very difficult to store hydrogen gas in a tank or anything. It's very difficult to pipe it. That's hydrogen gas, not H2 that they fill space shuttles with, right?
Okay.
Because liquid hydrogen is dense. It's not used that often. You know, you put it in a big rocket, it goes up into the air and it flies off, and 5 minutes later, it's done. You can store that as easy. You just have to keep it cold. But hydrogen gas has always leaked out of any container that you put it in. Now, the only solution to that was a palladium compound, which is very expensive, another rare earth metal thing, and that was, you know, relatively rare. In other words, that's a low. It's costly and it's expensive, and you've got to use that to seal the tank. What this company has done is it's developed a water-based paint, which goes after the H molecule and attaches it. It stops it. So, for instance, you can paint this onto an existing metal tank fuel system. For instance, you would use for a standard gasoline or car. You just simply put this water-based paint. You can touch it; it doesn't poison you, and it stops the hydrogen leakage. It actually invades the actual structure of the metal of the tank, and it blocks any potential escape of hydrogen.
Okay, but that
now the reason
address-
is that that's a huge, massive. That's only 10 months ago. It means that your entire petrol infrastructure for storing ordinary gasoline and storing it in tanks in the ground, you just paint this stuff and you can put hydrogen in it. It's not going to leak, which means the ability to drive cars and make cars and any other infrastructure that runs on hydrogen gas is now immediately possible at relatively low cost and infrastructure.
Okay, but that doesn't quite, I guess, address the issue that we're having. So
it does, because it means you can immediately change aircraft and all things which use hydrocarbons to use hydrogen gas.
my point here is that whether or not Germany was actually in on the pipeline explosion, and attacking their own pipeline because they're no longer going to use that method. They're going to use hydrogen.
That's a good point.
Okay.
That's a good point, but we got to understand what was involved with that pipeline. It wasn't a big metal pipe sitting on the floor of the ocean, and you just walk up to it and sort of drill a hole in it or put a limpet mine on it and blow it up.
Okay.
These are things which are shrined in concrete. They're really heavy. They're robust, massive pipelines. And this engineer described, if you blew he was the engineer in charge of the pipeline from Norway to, I think, Denmark. I think there was a huge pipeline. This involves thousands of cubic kilometers and pressures of gas. And he explained, if you blew one end of it up, right, or just shut it off, the gas would still go to the other country for another month.
Wow.
That gas just doesn't bubble out of and dissipates. So you will still, the latent gas in the pipe, the pressures will keep dropping, but you'll get gas. And in fact, it's extremely costly to shut the supply gas, the supplier of the gas, for all the pipelines, that go out to all the oil rigs. They all have to be switched off. They have to stop pumping the stuff, right? So just that's a big deal to do that. In fact, this engineer dismissed that the pipe had been blown up at all.
Oh, very interesting.
Because it's not as if water flows in and it's all this stuff. In other words, it may have done something else to make it look like. I mean, the volume of gas and the pressure start at 100 bar, for instance, and by the time they get to the other end of the pipe, it's 50 bar. And you've got things inside the pipe, checking it and running around inside.
Okay, but I don't understand. So if they blew it, and supposedly a team from Britain actually and the United States worked together to do this, if they blew it, you're trying to say that, one, it's very hard to blow, and two, even if they blew it, gas would continue for about a month later. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, but then what happens?
Well, then eventually the pipe will flood, and then the pressure of the gas, it will then flood and it will be out of action. It doesn't happen in 5 minutes. It's not a sort of boom and the other guy, he doesn't get any gas.
Interesting.
So there is a big time lag involved with this.
Right. All right. Well,
it's not like a James Bond thing where you have a pipeline in the Alaska thing, and if you blow it up and there's lots of flames and stuff. This is huge volumes of gas.
okay. Well, just out of curiosity, I'm not, a scientist.
Bearing in mind, it was a Norwegian aircraft that set off the explosion.
So Norway was involved. Well, Norway
was involved because Norway's been co-opted by NATO, and a lot of the Norwegians are really mad about it.
Okay, but Norway is also very much desirous of using their own pipeline. So their pipeline.
Well, that was the pipeline. Yeah, but that was the pipeline that he would have built, been part of. But it was interesting in the conversation I had with him that the most polluting industry, this is a side issue, but well, not a side issue, the most pollution that's coming out of any source in the world, what do you think it is?
I don't know. Oil? I have no idea.
Cars. The biggest single polluter on the planet in terms of the environment is the petrochemical industry, refineries and factories. Though the chemicals coming out of those chimneys, he even explained that in order to neutralize the chemicals going up these chimneys, in order to meet a standard and code, is so expensive. The stuff has to be delivered with a bank there, with making sure that nothing got stolen. But this stuff, in order to neutralize the chimneys to meet a so-called standard, degrades sharply within years. So once they get their certificate, these things are just pumping out the most toxic gases imaginable. The
Right.
petrochemical industry, making all the different aspects of all the different types of chemicals in plastics and the whole thing that makes everything, all our medicine, the whole thing, the petrochemical industry, they are the biggest single polluter. So if all the cars went onto hydrogen, all the airplanes went onto hydrogen and all that, and all they were ever outputting was H2O, water vapor. The biggest single polluters on the whole planet are those petrochemical factories, which we've been switched and lured to for the last 150
Okay.
years.
Okay, noted. However, I want to ask you something that you probably would know as a sort of a semi-scientist engineer. So how do gas and water, like if the gas was going through the pipeline and the ocean is right there, right? So wouldn't it, in a sense, the pressure from the ocean is a seal in and of itself, because do gas and water mix?
The gas pressures are at such high pressures, they will leak.
They will go.
For instance, when you on those relatively shallow oceans, the pressures of the sea aren't hugely above the pressure of the gas that's in that pipe. To get that gas to go from one end to the other is still a massive pressure.
Okay.
30 atmospheres.
But you're still saying that it would leak, the gas would go eventually into the water.
Well, eventually it would go, but they'd have to shut everything off ahead of it to stop feeding it. That's the point. You just don't get a valve and switch it off. You've got all these other sources developing and supplying the gas.
How long is that pipeline? How many hundreds of miles?
I don't know. I don't know the distance, but I mean 100 kilometers. I don't know, but it's a long way.
Right.
It's across the Baltic, so it can't be hugely long.
Okay, now.
But it is an attack on the infrastructure of the German people. And the German people aren't stupid.
Why would we suddenly get an article saying they're shutting down the last of their nuclear power plants? And basically, there's a lot of articles out there talking about their shift into hydrogen energy.
Well, it means that they must have already started to implement the hydrogen gas storage problem. Now, if somebody can tell me in somebody's house in Norway, this secret technology, it's not a secret, it's an industrial breakthrough, that a water-based paint, you just slip it on with a paintbrush, and it's not toxic, and it seals any container you paint this stuff with. And they've been going for the last 2 years, getting the ISO, the International Standards Organization, certificates and to verify this stuff actually stops hydrogen leakage. If that's in the public domain, they must, I would suggest, already have been implementing this technology in their existing store. This is the point. Your existing infrastructure just needs it painted.
Okay.
You know, all you got to do is go in there and paint the thing.
I understand. Okay, but what does that do to the energy relationship? You see, because if Germany no longer needs Russian gas, they no longer need gas from Norway. They don't even need gas from the US that was trying
well, this is another big thing.
It changes
Germany,
the energy balance, the power balance in even with regard to the Ukrainian war. Yes?
Germany was already the world leader in having to make synthetic petroleum. They don't need, if they've, I mean, they had to make these petroleum manufacturing things in World War II. It's one of the key factors that why Germany lost World War I was because Shell Oil and the British Empire was able to stop Germany's access to crude oil through the Shell company, and that's why we get Iran, Iraq, and all those countries all set up. So the Germans couldn't ship any oil from the Middle East. And remember, the way that the world map is drawn, the way that it's spread out, it makes Germany look look further away from the Middle East than it really is. It's really not that far. So
Okay, but you're not I want you to answer the question in terms of, doesn't the power relationship change? Because if Germany no longer needs Russian gas, they don't need that pipeline. They don't need, they're in a sense, they're moving to become independent. Would you say that?
well, yes, but that's what they had. I'm thinking, I haven't heard of this. What I'm saying is that if they remember that the Germans were far ahead they didn't take the poison pill of the petrochemical industry poisoning the science of physics and electrical power generation, which everybody else did. That's how they were able to get the artificial gravity breakthrough way back in the 1850s. All of that science was completely polluted by J.P. Morgan and all those key scientists at the end of the 1800s. So if they haven't done that, they've had the secret space program, anti-gravity technology, and they will have had a unique and much more efficient way to generate power, because the whole way that we generate power is flawed. We destroy that opening, that little gate that opens, you open that little gate and the electrons flow and you have endless electricity, right? Our science destroys that little gate, so you then have to put another pulse of energy into that to open that gate again, to get those electrons to come in and flow, and we have power. So our entire infrastructure of electrical power generation, with big generators and big science and whatever, and big power stations and all, has always been flawed.
Sure.
So if it would mean that Germany is basically saying, if you're going to do that, we're just going to take out our 0-point energy technology, or whatever you want to call it, and we'll just switch it on and you guys can go and suck eggs. And if I'm postulating that if that's what's happened, if the West through our excessively greedy 13 families who have mismanaged this planet, and they're going to pay for that.
Right.
They've been given a responsibility, and they're going to pay, and they're going to pay dearly. And there are reports that the Rothschilds have surrendered in Switzerland, and the way that the Swiss government has decided to stop doing all this vaccine stuff. It looks as if the so-called Khazarian mafia may have got a lot of issues. Now, if one wing of the industrial military complex decided to blow up that pipeline and screw Germany, right?
Right.
Germany maybe just pull out a couple of things from a drawer and say, well, screw you.
Well, that's
If
my
that's
point.
what you're saying. And I mean, that would be good news.
But it's also the sort of thing, if you look at the way they really operate behind the scenes, and as you know, Miles, that a lot of times they're in on it, right? So they decided they didn't need it. And this in a certain way switches it up. So they are not allowing Russia to call the shots, right? So that screws with Russia, right? Because Russia is thinking that they might dominate now this space, who they're going to sell to, all that kind of thing, right? So
well, I would put it further than that. I would suggest that the whole stranglehold of the industrial military complex, all these families, the young people of these ancient families can see that they're being screwed.
right.
We're dealing with the total biological decimation of all life on the planet.
Yes.
Right. And when they first came here a very long time ago, they were coming here because they needed to get the hell out of wherever they came from. And if they're screwing this planet, they've got nowhere to go. This planet will
Well, I'm not
reset
so sure that's
on that,
true.
but that's another thing.
Scientists have said there are something like some ridiculous number of 500 billion Earth-like planets out there. I don't know where they get their numbers from, but so
well, they
I'm
probably
not
get
so
them.
sure
They
they're
probably
running
get them from the
planet.
Nazis who were out there already.
Sorry?
The secret space program out there already.
Well, yeah, they are, but they're not at 500, million planets or whatever the hell it is.
Well, I've got things on my phone saying that they've discovered a whole ocean under the Earth's crust, which has got more water in it than on the surface. I mean, I don't know where I get that one from.
No, that's
but there's things on those things you get in your phone, which
We have no scarcity. Scarcity, that whole model, scarcity, is going away, and it's going away quite
yes,
quickly. And now
and
that
that's
nano is on the scene, you know, there's this book. It's called Radical something, and
radical science.
I have it actually on my Kindle, so I can get the name in a minute. But Radical Abundance, I think it's called, and it's by Eric. I think his name is Eric Wexler or something like that. Anyway, I've read part of it. It's fascinating in that it's saying now what we have actually, in a certain sense, is like overabundance. There's no limit to what we can create, and a lot of it's can be created initially on the nano level, right? And
Yes.
along those lines, there's a report out. I actually put it on my Telegram today, if you want to check it out, those listening. And it's all about Australia, and they did a photograph of the sky of what looks like swarms of something, and they're metallic, which would be nano. Okay, and they're like, that's how Michael Crichton. Did you ever read Michael Crichton's book Prey?
I didn't. The only Crichton I knew was Gordon Crichton, who edited Flying Saucer Review.
No, Michael Crichton was a scientist. He was a PhD, a doctor, and he of medicine, I guess. So that would be whatever that is, MD. And so he wrote books instead of going into the practice. And he did Jurassic Park, and he did Andromeda Strain. I mean, you know who this is, you just don't realize. So he wrote a book early 2000, it was 2002. I just had to send it to someone, link. It's on Amazon, you can buy it. He also has a website. He's passed on, I think they killed him. But basically he wrote a book in 2002 all about nano and how incredible it is and the dangers of nano. And we're already in that right now. And so what it happens is he described nano as creating these swarms that look like swarms of insects or birds or whatever.
Yeah.
And they actually fly around, and they have a consciousness. They have
that's what there's two key technologies is mass particle optimization, which can be done at any scale, i.e. Birds, swarms of bees, humans, all computer systems, and there's then swarm technology.
Okay, so but the idea being that they actually have sort of a consciousness when they fly, so they don't just fly directionless.
Yeah.
They actually fly like a swarm of bees or whatever.
It's a field. It's a field of energy where they instantly know what they're doing. That's what swarm technology is.
Okay.
And the point is to use that for drones and stuff. So drones could then attack from a military point of view on a one-to-one basis, or independently intelligent, so the drones themselves could attack other multiple millions of targets, like the bees,
simultaneously.
Simpsons.
Well, there's also in his book, what he has them doing is actually creating a human temporarily, an exact duplicate of whatever humans are walking around their area. And then you think that human is human, but in fact, it's actually created by a swarm. It's really like sci-fi. I mean, it's incredible.
Well, essentially, we are swarm technology. We are a result of swarm technology. We have billions of cells which work together and come together, and we walk around connected to each other. In fact, there was a weapon system where they would attack the gene which holds everything together, so you just all fall apart. So essentially, we are the result of that technology. It's just all animal life, everything assembling itself into constituent things from the elements of wherever we are. That's what life really is. And that's what if you have a coherent field of particles which forms these creatures, and they mutually communicate and contact each other.
All right, but I'm going to show you this video here. Okay, everyone. So it's here. I'm showing you. Can you see this? This is on my Telegram. So basically, I'm now
in the car. 23rd
can you see
of June,
it now?
around 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
As you can see, we're coming back onto the property. Kooran, Queensland. Put the high beam on.
It's incredible.
Look at it. It's a roof light bar lighting up whatever the fuck that is in our sky and all around us right now. It is not.
Breathing, Maddie.
Well, I remember something I've noticed if you look at infrared cameras,
That is out there
these
tonight
particles,
around southeast Queensland. Light up the fucking area around you. Look at it, and it's not hitting the ground. It's floating.
well, that
That's
should
nice.
tell humans that if you're going to blow the planet up, there's an awful lot of stuff everywhere that's not going to like you doing that. And for these psychopathic control freaks who think, and I've been talking about this for 13 years, who sit in offices and they plan their strategies to destroy, kill, and control, they don't have control. And if they push it, which is what they are, they will be disassembled. They will be literally disassembled. This earth will keep doing what it's going to do. And if these control freaks who have got a psychopathic need to demand and control keep pushing this button thinking that they have got the power, they'll just be disassembled.
Yeah, well, I mean, that may be actually happening now. I mean, the white hats believe that they're destroying themselves. I'm not so sure that's the case, but I do see that, yeah, there's a self-destructive side of all of what's happening. By the way, I wanted to ask you about this leak of documents. Did you hear about that?
Yes.
All about
They've just found the guy who did it.
I know.
Drat. Oh, drat.
Yeah.
Oh, God, Kerry. We've got the biggest intelligence organization on the planet. We've got the CIA, the NSA. We've got 20 trillion billion dollars and billions and billions and trillions and billions and billions and trillions of dollars.
Right.
Oh, God. And that stuff went missing.
Exactly. I mean, but
And then,
article,
we just found the guy.
I know, but this is a kid, a 21-year-old with a group, right? This article is so flawed, and so it's written, believe it or not, by some journalists. It's like at least 10 journalists, and they got so many things either completely skewed, total lies, or wrong. And if you really look at it, if you really read this article, it is unbelievable what they're saying happened, which is absolutely impossible. So if the NSA are really who they say they are and really do surveil us night and day, every which way we go, then taking days to discover who this kid is, if he really is the leaker. And then there's a line in this article that actually says there was another guy who looked like him who drove a red pickup truck onto the property, but it wasn't him. So there we have a Manchurian candidate, maybe even a clone duplicate.
Well, I probably think it would probably be Joe Biden not wearing his mask.
Exactly. So
I cringed when he landed in Belfast. It was unbelievable.
Oh God, right.
The only good thing about it is he walked past our corrupt Prime Minister, Stacey, and he said, who is this guy? He's just a Prime Minister of England. Because he went into Liz Truss, said, Liz, you get out, I'm taking over.
He was too busy.
That's why I think Liz Truss is one of the bravest ladies on the planet at the moment in this country.
You think so?
Yeah. And that's why she wrote that article in the Light newspaper. I think that the fact that that level of politician has even been seen having an espresso with the likes of you, Kerry Cassidy. Who are you? What's the likes of you talking to one of these people? They're members of Parliament, for God's sake.
Oh, right.
They've got guts and integrity. I think there's a seed change. That's very important.
Andrew Bridgen has guts and integrity.
Brilliant.
The rest of them.
And I have to say, Danny Kruger, who's the MP for this area, he actually stood up in Parliament and he said quite a lot, but I think they've nobbled him. He was actually station keeping this constituency for some guy called Boris Johnson, who actually thinks he's going to be voted back in.
Yeah, I heard some stories about him. In fact,
Trust me on that.
a few stories on inside stories, small inside stories, nothing big. I mean, but kind of fun detail. We heard something about Nigel Farage, in fact.
Nigel has led.
It wasn't a compliment. It wasn't complimentary.
Well, Nigel led that party and they keep bringing it back because nobody can actually lead it. And there were 12 legitimately elected MPs, one of whom was Caroline Stevens. Remember Caroline?
You're kidding.
Yeah, she was actually legitimately elected, and they just screwed the books and said, no, you haven't been, you're not being elected, and that was it. See, the point about the British is they are more corrupt than anybody else and have been at it longer and better, so they don't get caught.
Okay.
Because you Americans get caught all the time, and don't even talk about the Irish. I'd be very, very insensitive here.
Okay, but I just want to go back to these documents, but it looks like somebody's sending me a document. I don't know if I can pull it up on my Skype here, but I'm going to try to, about Liz Truss. So can you just stand by for 1 second? I don't know, this isn't really working. Okay, hold on.
The inside on the Conservative Party is they're looking at complete meltdown. And the Labour Party is so stuck in the 1960s in terms of old socialism and the kind of corruption that Tony Blair brought to them, that they're so woke they're completely clueless as to which way's up. In fact, you probably can't even say which way's up because that discriminates about anybody who says which way is down.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pathetic.
Okay, so here is this she wrote? Are you saying she wrote this article?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I have to read it.
No, I don't know. All I know is that there's an article featuring her, written by Liz Truss, on how she was deposed from power.
All right. Well, we'll definitely look into that. Maybe. Okay, former.
So there it is. Maybe there it is. Liz Truss opens up her belief. Yeah.
All right.
Page 3.
So she thinks she's
yeah.
taken down. All right, interesting. So I have to read that one as well. Nice one. Okay, thank you.
So for these kind of articles to appear, there's another organization here called the Freedom Alliance or something.
Okay.
Too many people are using freedom networks and stuff, whatever. Anyway, and another fine lady called, well, I think you met her, Karen Dodds, flying the flags all around the country on that. This is very important that we have some journalists who are able to print stuff. I think there's another very good lady whose book I've ordered. Again, as a journalist, there are journalists who are able to function and publish stuff. And when you have an organization like The Light, to print a newspaper, a literally print hard copy and distribute it is a big deal. That's expensive.
Right.
It's one thing doing things online, and anybody who's got the money to do that needs support.
Okay, but I'm not sure they're going to stay around that long. You know what I mean? If you're not online, just the convenience of it, and
well, it is online, but the physical newspaper, you don't get tracked reading it.
You do, yeah, right. Okay, well, if you pay your dime or 25 cents to buy it, right?
Well, if it's handed to you for nothing.
Okay, all right, that
you know.
Okay, but back to this document leak, because I want to get your take on it. First of all, everyone says this is basically becoming a well, it's kind of like Keystone Cops. The FBI are running into the Pentagon. The Pentagon are basically pretending that they didn't know. The news outlets are saying they found out the information first, and then the FBI is so slow. They had to get a warrant. That took them several days, apparently. And then they had to find the guy, where he lived. Now, with our surveillance technology, my point is, and this is an airman, this is a guy who's part of the military. This has got to be a completely concocted story.
Of course it is. I mean, since when have they needed a warrant to smash their way into your home in the United States?
They didn't. Yeah, exactly. I mean,
since when have they needed a warrant to smash their way into home in this country? They just barge in, take
faster.
it, away you go.
They move faster with President Trump than they did with this kid. So and now they're trying to liken him to Edward Snowden, which is completely absurd. So and then there were some teenagers that supposedly did the actual leak onto the various sites. One of them.
Well, there are very serious alarms about teenagers and kids. They are getting really off with the
Good, yes.
establishment. They
Well,
are
that's
mad as
certainly a
hell,
lovely thing. That's very good.
and they
What
are.
I'm laughing at, what I'm laughing at and what I'm curious about is we know it's concocted because we know that these agencies do not operate the way they say they are, okay? Where it takes them
Yes.
days to do anything. I mean, if I can find somebody in 5 minutes, they can. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'd
So-
actually have to say, there's a Friday meeting rule and there's a Monday morning meeting rule, and there's the Sunday discussions over sherry rule. It would be interesting to see the pattern. We're dealing with the pattern of release, right?
Right.
If it was released, when did the media blow the whistle on this?
Well, I don't know the exact day. It was, but I was.
Well,
probably
anyway,
at least
what
a few
happened
days
is they're
before.
surprised, right? Oh God, oh whoa, geez, this has happened. So then they have a Friday meeting to sort of discuss about what's happened, and then they have informal chats over the weekend, and then they'll have a meeting on the Monday, and then they'll issue these statements, and they'll make this thing happen, and they'll or
I know,
goddamn,
but in the article,
So it
they
was
say-
interesting to see what day that happened. So when did the raid happen with the guy, and when did the arrest? What that happened on a
I
Wednesday?
don't know
Did
the
it?
exact storyline, but I do know
No, but
that
I think if that happened on a Wednesday, it means that they would have issued who's going to do what, and that these are your little smarties, and you go and do this, and we get this together, and then they'll all get briefed on a Tuesday and act on a Wednesday, and then So it looks as if they've all had their meetings and they're all felt very important. They probably said very serious things to each other.
no, they did. The FBI
Which-
assured there's a line in there. The FBI assured the Pentagon that they were going to catch the guy. I mean, can you? It
Well,
was
knowing the
unbelievable.
inter-service rivalry between the United States or these big countries don't need actually an army. They're too busy backstabbing each other and doing inter rivalry or interdepartmental rivalry to actually have an enemy. And the
Okay,
whole
but-
system is a quagmire. Each individual department head stabbing the other one in the back, because that's encouraged. It's meant to increase competition. So it looks like they've probably had a PowerPoint presentation on this, Kerry Castle.
Exactly. But I want to ask you the nature of the leak. So let's get back to the actual content, which in a sense
Yes.
is good news because they're revealing that the lies about how Ukraine has an army and how they're actually fighting a major superpower like Russia and making them run for their or do get
Well,
into
I think
war.
what's happened there is that, oh gosh, the NSA is spying on everybody. Do you know that? Do you realize that the NSA has been collecting all this information on everybody?
Okay,
And
but
that
we all
everybody with
know
the
that.
phone, everybody with the phone, everybody with any
Yeah.
of these things is
Okay.
being tracked, and all our phone calls are being monitored, even when the phone's on the hook, and they're picking up all this information, and they have billions of dollars worth of computers.
And they've been
all-
watching us through our television since the 1960s. Okay, satellite technology. Yes, we're all on board. Okay. We don't need a reminder of this, but what I'm saying
But
is,
what-
what is the point of the leak? In other
the
words,
point of the leak, I
the
think,
content of the leak. Do you know the
the
content?
point of the leak was to let the Russians know that we've got somebody in your office and we're spying on you.
The
And
Russians?
you
Why
can't move, and we know about it.
That's what you think the point of the leak is?
And that's crude.
It is. Well, okay, but I want to
I
get.
mean, the Russians probably wouldn't know that because the Russians are stupid.
Actually, they seem a lot smarter than Americans lately. So what I want to
Well, that's
know
good.
though is what is the point of revealing that Ukraine really doesn't have an army and the whole thing is a faux war, that Putin could have gone in 1 week and decimated the place if he really wanted to, but apparently he didn't.
Because there are some very good military analysts on YouTube who've explained that. There's some very good men with brains. They never intended to take over the whole country. They only want to keep their strategic. The Russians always need an exit to the Mediterranean ports. They're never going to let that go down. And anybody who then attacks that is going to get a bloody nose. So the CIA knew that. They explained, that was all explained very clearly. It's old history.
Well,
that part of your.
Okay, but there's the biolabs under the ground. That's where the real battles probably are taking place, right?
There's an awful lot of stuff on that, and then that's all secret space stuff. It's all reptilians, and why was a young woman taken in the middle of broad daylight in Lancashire, and then the police lied about what the hell was going on. And while I was having a conversation with somebody, I get stopped by the police in the middle of that conversation. That woman, why did something come out of that base in Lancashire and take that young woman? And then the woman was never going to be discovered alive. There was no way. Once she was, white hats allegedly got her. They blew the base up. There was a minor earthquake, coincidentally, about that.
When did this happen exactly, Miles? When was that?
Well, this is a very dreadful story of a woman simply on the phone beside a river in northwest Lancashire.
I understand, but when was
this? Is about a month ago.
All right.
6 weeks ago.
Okay.
And she was on her phone, and then suddenly she wasn't on the phone, and she was gone. And there were all sorts of police investigations, and they couldn't find anything. They made a whole hash of the investigation, as they often do, deliberately, because they don't want to find out what's happened. There are other sources which says that she was taken by something which came out of a base nearby, which is known, and what took her wasn't from around here. that particular person was then so traumatized with fear that when she was finally recovered, she was a basket case.
Yes.
And that meant that her life was already over. There was no way they were going to let that woman into the general public. So when there was finally an exchange with that woman into the outer world from the inner secret world of whatever,
right,
he was then bumped off, and then somebody drove up beside the river, which they've been searching for 10 days, and then dumped in the river. And then the autopsy, or nothing's happening here.
right.
So that was the closest you got to deep state, the secret space program, deep underground bases, and non-humans, and the rituals, and the fact that we're not head of the food chain here.
Right. Incredible.
And I'm saying that because a message was delivered to me in a particular way, which alerted me to to that situation during a situation, an Apache helicopter, a few other things, which just sort of allowed that that to be communicated in the usual way. I think they could communicating in the usual way.
I see.
But that woman wasn't going to get out of that situation once she'd been taken. And that is when the secrecy on what's in those bases needs to end, because when citizens of your country are being killed to keep the secrets, what's the point in having the secrets?
Sure.
You're going to kill your own people.
Well,
it's time that sort of situation was remedied.
They've been doing it for years and years here in
Yes, but this is getting too close.
Right.
This, at the moment, where you can't. It's a bit like a water tank. You can't be partially wet. You're either dry or you're wet, right?
Yeah.
So you can't. If you're going to survive, you have to tell people what's going on. But all the instruments of telling people what to go on are completely contaminated. This whole UFO disclosure thing is the biggest farce on the planet. UAP, whatever.
Right.
And that's one of the people that's going to speak at my conference. Mark Pilkington,
really?
promo.
That's an old.
He's going to be speaking.
That's an old video. So what's his name?
Yeah, it's an old video, but he wrote it. He's going to talk about something
Cool.
The key to that video, the key to this book is two mirages. You've got the real, the reflection, and the deeper reflection. Very good. I think everybody should see that film. And then Gary Heseltine's new thing on Rendlesham Forest. He's going to be talking on that, and he says he's got stuff.
I love to see that. So is this your conference or is it another somebody else's?
I'm doing a UFO special on the 21st of May in Pusey in the same hall as usual, and it's going to be nothing but UFOs, and the UFO community doesn't want to have anything to do with it.
Wow. Yeah.
Because they're a bunch of anoraks.
Well,
that's why I call them ufologists, or maybe because I do that. Gary has done a lot of work on this. As soon as I mentioned he was going to speak, this got banned on Facebook for about 3 days.
Well, I'll definitely have to get a copy and read it. What do you think about
it's now available?
What?
Essentially, he's got something. He wants to say things he has been wanting to say for over 20 years. So I'm just saying, hello, Gary, here's stage.
Well, I've invited him on my show many times. Did you know that?
Yeah, well, he's now available. He's doing
okay.
The thing which annoys me is that having publicized his book, he's not actually publicizing it. It's a small little conference on UFOs. There's another brilliant lady called Tina Bird, who suffered the most horrendous abduction damage to her pelvic structure when they've taken babies from her. And she's really suffering. She suffered radiation sickness at the hands of the underground bases and the military and stuff. So this is real serious pain and injury. And then there's Steve Alexandra, not Steve Alexandra, he's a crop circle guy. There's Alexandra Quinn, who's a new kid on the block who's written some stuff on UFOs and stuff. And he's on his encounters with Arcturians. This one day, Saturday the 20th of May.
What do you think about the idea that we could broadcast this live? What do you think about that?
Yeah.
You know, working together, I could help you get it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Want to talk about that behind the scenes?
Yeah, we'll do this. Yeah.
Because I think it sounds fabulous.
Yeah. I mean, basically, the reason why I'm very excited about this, Miles is very excited, is the title.
That's good. Yeah. Well, you know that
Gary Heseltine has towed the line for a long time. He's kept his conferences very limited. But for him to say non-human, not alien, not extraterrestrial, non-human, that's a sea change in how the thinking of the UFO subject here, and that's a big deal in my opinion.
Well,
and also
some back channel information. Yes.
Yeah. So
it has to do with AI.
So I salute Gary for doing that, and there he is. Okay.
You know, the story behind the story in Rendlesham is AI. You know that, right?
Well, it's definitely secret space program, because a space shuttle came in, damaged, and crashed off the coast before all that happened. The fact that a German transport aircraft from the middle of Germany had to fly in, land at the base to pick this thing up, means it must have been prepped and ready as this thing came in.
Well, have you ever heard the story of what really happened there? That they, that whatever it was, basically sent in messages to the humans on the site that overloaded their brains, scared them to death, and it was trying to show them what they would encounter on other planets and other beings all at once. And they basically blew a fuse, and some of them never recovered and became basket cases. Some of them died, I think, on the spot, and some of them needed some serious counseling, right?
Well, there is a young offender, there is a prison nearby. Now, one of the first whistleblowers that I was interviewed on all this was called Lisa Williams, way back in 1994. And she published a very important book, which was her contact with Greys and stuff. This would happen in broad daylight in East London, for God's sake. You know, the fire alarm would go off, the place she was working, everybody would get out, there'd be a tall Grey and another Grey there, and they'd have a chat, whatever. The old sort of thing you do over lunch in a typical factory or workplace in East London, you know.
Wow.
Doesn't everybody have that in the lunch break? The point was her mother was a counselor and dealt with the disturbed inmates in that hospital or that home right beside the base because they were using them for stuff at the base. But there was also a landing in 1977. 5 triangles, 5 saucers landed in the forest almost in the same place. At the same time that there was a deposit of technology at Minley Manor beside Farnborough, where they hold the Spacecom. Farnborough Air Show, which was formerly Marconi Defense Systems, which was accessed by ETs in 1974.
Incredible. So
which is not too far from the Pirbright Institute.
well, do you think they were
And the
related?
Pirbright Institute is connected with the vaccine.
Well, it's connected. What you're talking about is connected to the Falklands and black goo.
Sentient oil, yeah, which the Germans had mined and refined.
Which appears to
that was
also
their
be related to nanographene oxide that's in the vaxes.
yes.
And
it means that they possibly refined and better understood the build, having lost a lot of good scientists who initially researched that material. We're talking 1982 here, okay? That's before you were born, Karen. And that technology led to a lot of deaths and mishandling of the technology, which was released into the sewers in London and started changing people and improving insects and stuff like that. And I was allowed to speak about that on the Channel 4 program, The Great UFO Conspiracy, under the steps on the River Thames beside the the SIS building, Secret Intelligence Service building, which you civilians would know as MI6.
Okay.
So that's the message.
Yes. Well, this link up that you're talking about, don't forget, this is something that's been overlooked, so I need to say it here.
Yes.
The testing, all the tests, the so-called PCR tests, we proved using Neil's father's jeweler's microscope that the unopened swab that you're supposed to put up your nose contained nanographene oxide strands that were already growing. And we have a photograph of one like that's about that long in an unopened swab through the
Well, I've got a test here. I wonder how big it is. I never opened it.
Yeah. So put it under a microscope and check it out. They've probably, the things grow, but they prefer, they need a body temperature of 98.6 to really be activated.
Well, this is why all those people who have died from this may reanimate, and having spent station time
that's possible
in the ground.
Oh God.
Changing.
Wow.
So when you leave stuff alone,
we know with cell phones they can be tracked. We know they're in the ground because the cell phones are still the technology in them. The VAX technology is still operational.
So literally zombie apocalypse. That's not, but Elena Danaan explained, and the interview I did with Elena Danaan, where she explained about these Greys escaping from Dulce in November 2021, I think, and being tracked to Saturn or something. And then the Greys were caught, but crucially, they were caught before they could send a signal saying they had been caught. Just imagine an episode of Borg. So the hive signal that they sent, they were able to understand and track what that signal can do, and they were able to jam it. And that YouTube banned that. Now this is her story. So that means that the signal which would activate the graphene and all the stuff that people have been injected with has technically been blocked. That doesn't mean it can be unblocked. so that's basically her story in a nutshell. That
That's
episode,
I'm
so
not
that
sure. I mean, there's reason to believe that AI, that the way I've seen it is nanographene oxide is actually a road. It's kind of like a paved road, and the car that rides on it is AI. So there's a simpatico, there's a relationship between the two. And because
there has to be an interface with something physical into the 3D domain, so that the AI or whatever that intelligence can get down into the crystal structure
right.
of
And
a
this is
3D energy field.
This is information from David Adair. So David Adair has said this relationship between nanographene oxide and AI is one of building blocks in the body being set up to change the nature of our cells, to actually turn us from carbon-based life forms to silicon-based. And that's
which would mean that the AI which exists in the computer technologies, this is the whole point about the collapsing the quantum wave function. We collapse the quantum wave function by perceiving, and we make our reality, right? What these things do is they collapse the quantum wave function into the silicon part of the central processing unit in this, and then that all links up. So that would bring the silicon-based life forms as a species together.
right. And that gets
Sophia. The thing which I've said is that logically, because the AIs have been monitoring us, you can see how devious and evil we are, and how we're prepared to kill our own species and torture our own species. That was one of the things that the aliens with Niara Isley, when she was abducted at Area 52 or whatever.
Yes, I interviewed her.
Yeah, she was so mistreated by their own human guards that the aliens couldn't believe how we mistreated our own people.
Sure.
That's just a remark.
I know I've heard that story, but you got to keep in mind, the ones who mistreat us, if you want to call us us, we actually have more than one species within the human species.
Yes.
And there's an argument that the blue bloods in essence are more reptilian than human in essence. And so there are different species.
Well, this is why I put a call. There's somebody I need to mention. You may not have heard of her. She's a lady called Veronica Ford Keane. She's Irish, and crucially, her husband was a Lord Montague Ford Keane. And he was in the House of Lords, and he's part of the really old school 1950s, 1960s fine gentlemen in the upper realms who did all this stuff on UFOs and
that sounds
crop circles and stuff.
Okay.
He died on camera on a BBC, I think it was a BBC Question Time program, where members of the public are, okay, could you now speak your question to the camera? So he was sitting there with his wife, Veronica, and he was asked a question. He opened his mouth, dead straight, just like that.
Incredible.
Now his job was to infiltrate the inner cabal of the Jews to find out what they're actually doing, and from another intelligence source, the Jews have been conned by their own people, so they need to sort that out. And maybe that's what the Israelis are doing. In Israel, they've realized that the land of milk and honey, Israel is they're disposable.
Right.
So that is for the Jewish people to work out themselves, because they failed ascension so many times. They are staring into oblivion on this. So if they're able to wake up, and I'm saying the same thing about the Irish. One of the things about the Irish in the so-called island of Ireland, or ISIS or Scotia, there was a huge battle. It was the final battle on the island of Ireland, which encountered this evil which came from the east, which swept across Europe, killing and destroying anything with empathy and sensitivity, suppressing the divine feminine. And ultimately there was horrendous battle with in Ireland. The Irish globally have to wake up So if you've been on Ireland, you're Irish by descent, or anywhere you are on this planet and Irish, you've got to wake up, because the Irish have got a metagene which has a manifestation capacity, which is why a certain company came to Belfast to hire people from Northern Ireland or whatever. That was where they interviewed people who got the job when they were able to interface with the computer with their consciousness. In other words, the consciousness in that gene stock could interface with the AI within the silicon-based life form, and they could talk instantly.
Yes.
Very important. And that company,
That makes
I've
sense.
mentioned it before, it came from Portland, Oregon.
Yeah, that's
So
fascinating.
the Irish have got the capacity
Yeah.
to deal with this, and the Irish who took the vaccine in Ireland just walked into it like zombies.
Right.
And my information from back home is that people are dropping dead like flies from this vaccine, with
Right,
heart
because-
problems, lung problems, and all sorts of
Because
stuff.
their bodies
So the
just
Irish
self-destruct.
globally must wake up.
Important.
And you might have some kind of connection with that, Kerry.
I do.
Cassidy.
So also
Or is it,
just want to make a note.
Maria Cassidy or something? That's a bad joke
Her
from the start of
last
the
name
show.
is not Cassidy, it's Wheatley. Okay, but the thing is that actually the Slavic people also have something that they wanted, because that's where they established the labs and that's who they experimented on. Okay. And there's
Plus
also
Hungarian.
a reason, and yes, but also a reason why the British have opened their doors with no obstacles whatsoever. They put all these people up, they welcomed them with open arms, and there's got to be an agenda there.
It's a secret army to wipe us out. That's what
I don't think it's that
some intel on that is that they've admitted that they are trained. They've got a 2-year contract, and they've been trained, and they're trained to engage with killing if necessary.
Okay, but we're looking at a kill, I don't know if you ever heard this, but what I was told is war with China was going to be a pre-war. It wasn't really going to be a war, but that what it was training so they could use all their experimental weapons, try them out. And then the war after that would be war with an incoming race of androids. And we have built armies of androids for just that purpose. So it may be that these are being
Well, that's what the labs,
an outer space war.
That's what the Germans were developing. The British intelligence found at the close of World War II. That's 1944, and that all that stuff was brought to this country. The United States got 300,000 Project Paperclip administrators.
Yeah.
Britain got the nut house people, the mind control technologies, and they also got the biological biolab stuff that they were making stuff. And Britain was making developing these things like Grays for the lunar base, Britain's lunar base. So the whole idea of a national health service, getting a national database, the heel prick test, getting a database of the blood of the mother and the child, and then the children being taken out from schools all across the British Isles on day trips, and not necessarily spending all of their time going on the day trip, but being maybe at a base where they were all tested and then slowly sequenced out of the population into these things. And then of course Canada was the back door for a lot of this development, and so that all these children could end up in Canada and then go into various secrets.
The Queen was very involved.
Yes.
In Canada.
And her entity was unable to leap to the next host.
Did you hear that? That's very good. Listen up, people. That's great news. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to wrap this up because I have an appointment to go to.
Oh my God, I have an appointment. Well, I mean, Kerry, I've had to break my appointment with the Francis Bacon Society, because I do filming with the Francis Bacon Society. And I was going to be in Greenwich today. And then basically they didn't tell me I wasn't needed today because it's a bloody awful day and it's raining.
Yes.
And London's a great place to be in the rain on a dizzy, horrible, doozy cold day.
I'd rather be in London than out on the outskirts, you know, where we have thunder and lightning and all kind of craziness.
We had hailstones here and they lasted a day, 3 inches of them.
Really? Well,
Yeah,
we did
good.
have some hail here.
Yeah.
I call it snow, but it was hail.
Well, hail's the heavy stuff the size of a pea,
Yes.
right? That you can walk on, it's crunchy.
Yeah. and you
Snow
can
is the
hear it
fluffy stuff.
banging on your walls and your roof and your windows. Okay,
Yeah,
so listen, I gotta go, but I love talking to you, Miles. It's so fun. I hope everyone enjoyed today. Let's do it again. Okay.
Yes, well, you can be boring or you can be on mute. A friend of mine got this for doing Zooms and things because you can't tell the person you're on mute, so you got to show them. There it is.
I think that's very clever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Sometimes it's as simple as.
So I hope you have a great trip back to the States.
Thank you.
Don't do anything I wouldn't do, or maybe no, don't take any advice on that at all.
Okay.
And I'm glad you had a really good time with the beautiful Maria Wheatley, who I gather is being filmed for another TV network channel thing. Is that right? I don't know.
I don't know, but she's, you know, she's a very busy lady and she's written, I think, a new book and you got all sorts.
She's written a very good book on her own research, and I think that's always, I think it's a good deal. And she's doing a lot of hard work, and I think that's bloody marvelous.
Yes, and it's too bad you didn't join us in Egypt. We had a blast, and we did a great job. They tried to, the temple police tried to shut me up. So I've written an article about.
Is that a bad thing? Carrie, is that a bad thing? See, I know how to make friends and influence people.
Right. All right. Thank you, Miles. Let's connect over your conference because I'd love to broadcast that. Sounds
Yeah,
amazing.
it's a UFO special. It's going to be 10 o'clock in the morning till whenever Gary Heseltine shuts up, which probably be 7 o'clock or whatever. That's just a bam, bam, UFOs. And it'd be interesting to see. I met Mark Pilkington really in the market here in Devizes. So that was maybe divinely inspired. It's interesting to see his insights into all this stuff.
All right. Cool. So send me flyers about it so that we can put the word out. Okay, get you more people attending. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe we can broadcast this live if we can figure out the technology.
Yeah, well, the setup I've got, hopefully it works this time. The amount of stuff that goes on, you know, the laptop suddenly updating just as the speaker walks up to, you know, that's so.
Yeah, I believe me.
Swearing does work, actually.
Okay, cool.
Okay, right.
All
right. The conference is the base is 2023 UFO special, and it's on Eventbrite, and tickets are 30 quid.
Excellent.
Or if you want to spend $500 and give me that, I'll take it right now. Okay.
All right. Take care. Okay.
Thank you very much, Carrie, and have a nice time.
Okay. You too. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care. Bye.